All right, welcome in to the Tuesday edition of the 14. I'm your host, Blake Lovell, and yes, stepping in for Chris Lee today, but we have our friend Barry Allen here with us. And Barry, got a lot of baseball to talk, but we're going to start off with something that's non-SEC related, although I think that there are probably a lot of SEC fans that are fans of the Atlanta Braves and something they got to see here recently. And if you were a fan of the Braves, this is probably not something that you're very excited about. But Madison Bumgarner pitches a 7-inning no-hitter on Sunday. And I know one of the things you texted me last night and said, wouldn't it be interesting to have that discussion on, because there's been a debate about, it's only 7 innings. It's not a traditional 9-inning game because they had played it, in the second of a doubleheader. And yet he still gets, credit for the complete game. He still gets the shutout. But there's been a lot of debate about whether, this no-hitter through 7 innings. But as you pointed out, guess what? In college baseball, there's a lot of those as well. And so it brings up a pretty fascinating discussion.
Well, it does. And just like first of all, I'm a scorekeeping freak.
Right.
I'm a rules nerd. So that is. But I have a lot of various charts I keep, throughout the course of the year. And from the junior college to NAIA to Division I, Division II, and Division III, as we stand right now, there have been 70 no-hitters this year. You'd look at that and you'd think, well, wow, that's a lot. And the majority of them are 7-inning games.
Right.
I mean, these NAIAs play doubleheaders. They're 7 innings. Junior colleges play 7 innings. They're doubleheaders. A lot of them are combined no-hitters. Just not a lot of teams that, go multiple, 9-inning games. I mean, just right off the top of my head, there's been 16 Division I no-hitters, and I'm just trying to scan through here very quickly at some of these, and there's just not a lot of 9-inning no-hitters. I mean, Mississippi State threw one, but it was with 4 people.
Yeah.
Jack Leiter obviously jumps out for the 9-inning no-hitter at Vanderbilt. But most of these you see are, 7-inning games or combined no-hitters. Oregon State threw a 9-inning no-hitter with 4 pitchers against Washington earlier this year. Ditto for Jacksonville State. Indiana had a combined 9-inning no-hitter against Illinois a couple of weeks ago, but they walked 8. But it's still a no-hitter. And, so I think Jack Leiter and Alec Jacob and Elliott Carney for Wofford are the only 3 9-inning complete game no-hitters this year in Division I college baseball. Elliott Carney pitches at Wofford. Give him a little props there. But, Leiter set, is the first one we look at. So, being a rules nerd and being a stats nerd and all that it is, I mean, if Madison Bumgarner pitched a complete game and he was the winning pitcher and they didn't score a run and they didn't score a hit, in my opinion, Madison Gardner threw a no-hitter Sunday.
Right.
And if I'd have been at that game, you could rest assured that would go on my list of no-hitters seen in person. And in Major League Baseball, if you're going to play 7-inning games and double headers, then you got to maybe try to lax your rules a little bit. What happened if Ronald Acuna had hit for the cycle in that 7-inning game?
Right.
Is that a cycle?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, is it not? Did he not have a double, single homer? I mean, he didn't, but I mean, Ronald Acuna is very capable of, of cycling. They go, well, it's only in 7 innings. Hey, Ronald Acuna could bat 4 times in 7 innings and get 4 hits easily.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy for him. What if Freddie Freeman had hit 3 or 4 home runs in a 7-inning? What if they just bombed the Giants and it was 20-1 in 7 innings and Freddie Freeman hit 4 home runs? Does that not count?
Right.
Is that not a Braves record, 4 home runs in a game, or ties the major league record for home runs? Does that not count? What if they turn a triple play? Does that not count? I mean, it's just it's kind of silly to me, but I just feel like that's a no-hitter, and we've gone through some of them here, and I mean even some junior colleges this year's had 5-inning no-hitters because they play run rule in 7 innings, and so I think Major League Baseball, you're changing the rules, you're putting the ghost runners on seconds, you're making it different now, so I think maybe they need to look at that. But in my opinion, I don't know what you feel about that, but my opinion, Madison Bumgarner threw a no-hitter Sunday.
Yeah, that's what you said. I think that's the best way to put it is throughout the entirety of the game, no one on the opposite team got a hit. he pitched the entire game, and no one got a hit. So that's a no hitter. And it's different if you're playing a 2 inning game that's rain delay. Like there's just so many other things. But I mean, they played 7 innings. That was the set schedule for the game. Like that was the set amount of innings for that actual game. And like you said, he pitched, he went the entire way, and no one got a hit off of him. So I was thinking as you said that, we're going to get a 7 inning no hitter in the SEC here in the next week or two, just so we can have this discussion again. But I think, yeah, it's any way you slice it, that's an impressive performance. And Barry, one of the others, there was some impressive performances in the SEC this past weekend, and Chris and I talked about it a little bit yesterday with some of the teams that kind of stood out. I think the one series that everyone sort of had their eye on was Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. The battle of the two top 5 teams, and I think Chris, one of the things he pointed out was, Vanderbilt wins that series, but he thought, he came away kind of impressed with Mississippi State, and obviously they're the number 4 team in the country, and there's plenty of things to be impressed about. But I think he felt like, just seeing them up close, you could see some of those things that really stood out to make them kind of the caliber of team that they are. And we mentioned it about how they got to Jack Leiter on Saturday, and couldn't do a whole lot with Kumar Rocker, but a lot of people can't either. But I thought that was a pretty interesting series. There were certainly some takeaways on both sides, but I just thought that was a series between two really, really good baseball teams.
Yeah, two teams is probably going to be in a super regional, and very likely, if they don't match them up with each other in a super regional, could go to Omaha. But Mississippi State's really good. I mean, that's the two. We've talked about it. You and I and Chris, we've all talked. The two premier pitching staffs in this league, and Mississippi State's very, very close to taking 2 out of 3 at Vanderbilt. They're 4-0 in Game 3, but couldn't hold the lead, and because Vanderbilt's a really good offensive team and came back and won the third game and ended up taking the series. But 3 really good, high quality, high drama, competitive games. State scored in the first inning in every game. I mean, they score on Kumar in the first inning. Rowdy Jordan, I think, goes leadoff homer against Jack Leiter in Game 2, and it's 4-0 with the bases loaded in Game 3. And Vanderbilt, Chris McIlvain gets out of it. It's a super regional type series, high drama, and you knew Vanderbilt had star power, with Rocker and Leiter and Noland and Dominic Keegan and Gonzalez, but and State's got really good star power on offense too, Tanner Allen and others. But the catcher Logan Tanner Saturday night, he was a beast. I mean, he won the game for them against Jack Leiter, hit a 2-run homer, had an RBI double. Really controls the running game. Those two catchers or those two teams have allowed the fewest stolen bases of anybody in the conference all year long. And with the exception of Dominic Bradfield, they really control Vanderbilt's running game. But one guy that just jumped off the page at me this weekend for Mississippi State was their shortstop, Forsythe. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. I mean, he's making plays at shortstop that just, you're like, I'm not sure Ozzie Smith could do that when he was 19 years old or 18 years old. The double play that he turned in the second game with the balls hit up the middle, slow roller up the middle. There's only one way to make this play, and he did it. And he catches the ball and steps on the bag with his left foot, and then comes off the bag and pivots to throw and throws the runner out at first base. I don't remember who the batter was, but Mississippi State fans listening, they're all sitting there going, yeah. We were screaming at the TV. That's a big time play right there. Now that's a big time SEC major league type play at short. And that kid really had a great series in the field for Mississippi State. And just maybe that series alone, made some money this weekend because he could really pick it at shortstop. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, I came away, like I said, Chris did too, as you mentioned. I mean, pretty impressed with Mississippi State. And again, that's not surprising based on the season they've had. But there was a lot to like about them. And like you said, if they just hold on to that lead in Game 3, it's a little bit different, and maybe they got another win as they head into this weekend against Texas A&M. But staying in the state of Mississippi, because we had this discussion too, because man, Ole Miss has lost 4 straight series here, and we had talked about, and you guys had mentioned their schedule, up until this past weekend, but now you think you should be able to turn some things around against LSU. We've talked about their struggles this year, but once again, you lose 2 of 3 against LSU. And now, you look ahead and really it doesn't get a whole lot easier for them in terms of what they've got left on their schedule. They've still got South Carolina, they've got Vandy, and they've got Georgia, and they got A&M in there too, a trip to College Station. So what do you kind of make of Ole Miss right now? Because I mean, as we said, they played a tough schedule these past 3 weeks or so, and then to come back against LSU, you lose the first two, then you got to find a way to win this third one against LSU. They've been 10-9 in that one on Saturday, but it seems like Ole Miss just cannot sort of figure out a way to build any of that momentum right now.
Yeah, that was a head scratcher this weekend in Oxford, and credit Ole Miss. I mean, they're dead in the water in the 8th inning, and they're
Yeah.
6 outs away from having the broom put on them at home against LSU for the first time since '96. But they found a way to win, and that's not the recipe that Mike Bianco would draw up. Hey guys, we got to get 8 in the 8th to tie this thing up, and you get a base hit, you get a 3-run homer from Chardonnay, and then you get a grand slam from McCants, and all of a sudden it's 9-9, and then oh, by the way, here's Kemp Alderman coming up to the plate at the bottom of the 9th and hits the first pitch into the seats into the student section for a home run. This kid had not had an at bat before Tuesday night last week against Little Rock. He's being redshirted. And Mike Bianco decided last Tuesday night they just needed a little something extra, I guess. And so Kemp Alderman started the game against Little Rock and got a base hit, went 1 for 4. And then he pinch hit against LSU Friday night, and he went 0 for 1. He's 1 for 5 in 2 games, and he gets his first SEC start on Saturday, and it rolls to him in the bottom of the 9th inning, and lo and behold, he's a legend in Ole Miss baseball now. So, I mean, this guy had 0 at bats 1 week ago today in his college career, and now he's got a walk-off home run. But, Gunnar Hoglund didn't pitch for them this weekend. They said he had some stiffness. They thought they were going to try to give him a extra day's rest Thursday. They ended up starting Derek Diamond, who hasn't pitched well, and he's lights out. They just can't. The bullpen just couldn't hold the lead for him in the late innings, and then they couldn't. The Casey pitched well, but the bullpen got into some trouble again Friday night, and they end up losing that game 7-2. That's the first game that Ole Miss has lost with Nikhazy on the mound in SEC play, and then it's 9-1, and you're like, holy moly, they're going to get swept by LSU, but they found a way, and so to me they got to figure out the mound a little bit. They got to get Hoglund back. Diamond's got to get right. McDaniel didn't pitch well Saturday. They got to figure it out on the mound. They got to get the bullpen straight. I think Broadway, who had 2 really bad outings in a row by Taylor Broadway standards, blown save Friday or Thursday and last Sunday against Mississippi State, coming in and couldn't hold leads. But he got right Saturday, pitched, 2 effective innings on Saturday, end up getting the win. They got to get that figured out. And, they miss Elko. I mean, they missed Tim Elko really bad. Yeah. And anybody that's, meat of their order hitters out of the lineup, you take the best hitter out of everybody's lineup, and all these teams are vastly different, and they really miss him. And but they found some guys, and I think that's one reason Alderman got in there. They just trying to find somebody that could, maybe drive the ball out of the park, or, some gaps. But they've got good offensive players, and they showed that they could have won 2 out of 3. They also showed they could have lost all 3. But a daunting task this week. They've got South Carolina coming into town. Then they go to A&M. They got Vanderbilt at home, and then they go to Georgia. So the good things about that is the 2 teams that going to really give them trouble are coming to Oxford, and the 2 teams that they feel like they might be able to play well against, they're going to A&M and they're going to, Georgia. So the schedule is tough for them, but at the same time, the 2 favorable road series. A&M's 3-6 at home in the league, and Georgia's 4-5. You got 2 losing records, and you look at Vanderbilt, they're 5-4 at home. So that's not great. It's not awful, but it's not great. So they're playing, but on the road, which is where the series is, Vanderbilt's 8-1.
Yeah.
and they just happened to win 15 of their last 16 SEC games on the road. So that's going to be tough. And South Carolina's 5-4 on the road this year as well. So, they're playing two teams that play really good on the road, and they're going to places. They're going on the road and playing two teams that haven't played very well at home this year. So, be an interesting last 4 weeks for Ole Miss. To kind of stay in that hunt for a regional host and in that national seed talk. But they're going to have to put some wins together the next 4 weeks to be in that conversation.
Yeah, I guess on the flip side for LSU, they get some momentum coming out of this series, but now it's like, well, all of a sudden you got to turn right back around and play Arkansas this weekend. But they're, I guess finished to the schedule. They're at Auburn. They've got Alabama at home, and they're at A&M. That's certainly not anything like what they've gone through thus far in terms of having to play Mississippi State and Tennessee and Vanderbilt and South Carolina and Ole Miss and now Arkansas. We kind of talked about this stretch for LSU, but for them moving forward, like we said, I mean, right now they've only got 6 wins in the league, but overall, as you look at LSU's path forward, I don't know, is there a way for them to kind of build off of this? I mean, like I said, it's probably be better if you didn't have to play Arkansas this weekend, but maybe that gives them a little bit of confidence that then those last 3 series are certainly they're winnable series, I guess, if you look at it from LSU's standpoint.
I think if they can get one from Arkansas at home this weekend, I absolutely think that LSU could win all three of the last 3 series. I know they're going to Auburn, be playing the worst home team in the SEC. Auburn's 1-8 at home this year in conference play. They're playing Alabama. Find me somebody can figure this team out. I mean, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, good gracious, they go to A&M and sweep. They take 2 out of 3 from Auburn. They've beaten Arkansas 16-1 on the road, and they go to Kentucky Sunday and they look like they hadn't seen a baseball or a baseball field in their life. I mean, they, just really bad Sunday doubleheader for them. Lost to 11-0, gave up 7 home runs in a game, had 1 hit, and it came in the second inning. I mean, so who knows? I mean, that's a team that LSU's got to look at and go, we beat them. And then you go finish up at A&M, and they're not very good at home this year either. So I think LSU is still in it. I think LSU still. I don't know if they're in it for a regional, but I think they're still in the hunt for Hoover. And it would not shock me if LSU got to Hoover. It would not, just based on if they can get one from Arkansas this weekend. I mean, they very easily could be 6-3 the last 3 weeks. They're all of a sudden 7-5, and next thing you know, they got 13 wins. And I think 13 wins is in Hoover. It gets you to Hoover, and I think it gets you into conversation because their RPI is good enough. They've played a good schedule. I think, and they go to Hoover and win 2 or 3 games, a couple of games, who knows? But I certainly think LSU is still in the mix, even though they're 6 and whatever. I still think they're 6-12. I still think they're in the mix. They could somehow find a way to win 6 or 7 of their last 12 games and be right in the thick of it.
Yeah, you brought up Alabama, Kentucky, and we talked a bit about Kentucky yesterday, and we thought it was kind of fascinating because, I mean, like you said, it's 7 home runs in that game on Sunday, but now this is where we start to like really figure out, okay, what is Kentucky? Because as we said, I mean, their finish to the schedule, you have to think, and I'm sure I could look around, but I just have a feeling that there's little doubt about this. Like they probably have the toughest schedule of anybody probably to finish the season because they go to Tennessee this weekend. Then they've got Florida at home. They got South Carolina at home, and they still got to go to Vanderbilt to finish the year. So I guess you're probably in agreement on that, in that this is where we really start to figure out Kentucky, because as we had talked about before, they've been a team that's hard to figure out because, yes, they played at Mississippi State, they played at Georgia, but some of these other teams, we've talked about their struggles, Missouri, Auburn, LSU, Bama. Now, the rest of the way, they're not playing any of those teams that have sort of had those huge struggles or those huge stretches this season of where they've been, maybe inconsistent. Now they've pretty much got 12 games the rest of the way here in SEC play to where they're all going to be challenging, and I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how Kentucky finishes here.
Yeah, I agree, and it's easy to look at their schedule and go, well, they're not going to win another series, but we know that's not going to happen.
Right.
That's just that you could say, I'll bet you whatever they're not going to win another series, and I'd probably take that bet because just the way this league is. They're going to beat somebody. I mean, I don't know who it'll be, and they may not win another series, but They go to Tennessee, as you mentioned, host Florida, host South Carolina, and then close at Vanderbilt. I would think it would be hard for them to. I think it would be hard for them to win more than 4 of the last 12, but it puts them at 13. Their non-conference schedule is not great. I would think that they would be a team that, if they got to Hoover, they would have to win in Hoover to get an NCAA tournament bid. But you go out here the next 4 weeks and you pop Tennessee or you pop Vanderbilt or Florida or South Carolina and get, all of a sudden you got 6-6 or 7-5. I think that's probably a reach. But if you get 6-6 and you finish 15-15 in this league and you're in the top 8, they make a little run in Hoover, they might be tough to be left out. But I think it'd be a real daunting task for the Cats the next 2 weeks or next 4 weeks. I mean, they were 5-1 against Missouri and Auburn, and that's what you're supposed to be against Missouri and Auburn. I mean, just be frank. And then they played close at Mississippi State. They got blown out in the first game, but the last 2 games were 1-run games, and then they got blown out by LSU in the first game, and close second game, and then blew LSU out in the third game, and then a couple of close games at Georgia that lost a 1-run game, and they got blown out. That's the thing. You looking at Kentucky, a lot of these, they have a lot of blowouts, in their not in their favor. They come up Friday night against Alabama, give up 7 in the 7th, they get beat 10-1, and then held Alabama to 2 runs the rest of the series. 2-run homer by Diodati in the 6th inning in game 1 on Sunday. And I think Alabama on Sunday, had 5 hits in 14 innings of play, and 2 runs on a 2-run homer. And so where did that pitching come from? And then all of a sudden you got guys like Collette and John Rhodes, hitting 5 home runs, a 3-homer game and a 2-homer game, and guys hitting balls out of the park there, 7 home runs against Alabama on Sunday. So the power's there, the pitching has been there, but so has the propensity to get blown out in a game in the series. And, they cannot get in a shootout with Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. I don't think they can do that and win. They'll have to pitch and play good defense and hold these teams down to have a chance. But, not a great chance for them at the end, but you just, like in this league, you just never know.
Yeah, you said it. You never know. And Chris pointed that out yesterday, this past weekend, the first time an SEC play this season, that there were 0 sweeps. So, someone is going to, probably find a game somewhere. And it's just a matter of figuring out for Kentucky. You gotta figure out where those games are going to come from. Won't be easy with that schedule. But let's go back to Arkansas and South Carolina, because that was certainly another big series, and we talked about some of the others, but Arkansas wins that one. They hold South Carolina to 1 run in that game on Thursday, 1 run in the second of the doubleheader on Friday, but South Carolina steals one there in the middle, 6-2 win in that one. Anything that really stood out for you in that Arkansas South Carolina series?
Yeah, Kevin Cobb.
Right. Yeah. I think we were texting about that. Yeah. Chris brought that up. Yeah.
Holy smokes. I mean, this dude, we've kidded all year that, when Dave Van Horn gets in trouble, he calls the cops. And apparently I don't know that we're the reasons for that, but apparently that's a big deal now, because every time he's in the game, there's sirens and lights and and they go, guess who's in, and the flashing lights are going on, and this guy's just nuts on the mound. I mean, he comes in the opener, faces 9 batters, retires them all, and strikes out 6, and then he comes in the final game of the series on Friday night, and he faces 6 batters, and he strikes every one of them out. I think he threw 22 pitches. I think he threw 20 cutters, sliders, types, with only 2 fastballs. So this dude goes to South Carolina this weekend and faces 15 batters, does not allow a base runner, goes 15 up, 15 down, and punches out a dozen Gamecocks. That's a pretty nice weapon to have in your bullpen. Even the game they lost, I think that Peyton Pallette pitched really well. Only 2 runs allowed in 5 and a third innings. The bullpen kind of let him down a little bit. But, South Carolina had 1 inning all weekend long. They had 1 inning. They scored 4 runs in 1 inning in the 6th inning on game 2 of the series. They scored 4 runs the rest of the series. And Arkansas pitched well, and they hit the ball, they hit home runs, and but if Arkansas can take out that one inning there where they gave up 3 hits and 3 walks and hit a batter, they might sweep. And South Carolina, probably felt pretty good to get that one game, but they're still a good team. I mean, they're still, they didn't play bad. They just played a team that I think is just better than they were. And I mean, I think Arkansas is just better than them. And next year they may play, and South Carolina may be better. But when you got a guy, when your lineup is as good as Arkansas's, and it may be as good a lineup as anybody's in this league, 1 to 9, they got power, they got speed, and their starting pitching is now beginning to come around. Bolden only gave them 3 innings on Thursday, but then you got Pallette gave them 5 in the third Friday, and then 7 innings as a starter in Game 3, career high 7 innings, 1 run, 2 hits, struck out 5, no walks, retired 21 of the 25 batters that he faced. I mean, I tip my hat to him too, because that won the series for him as much as Cops did. That won the series for him as well. So if their starting pitching can come around and Noland and can get in and Bolden gets things going, and I think we got a chance for them to have really, I think we really good finish. And I like this team. I've liked this team from the start. I've liked them since week 1 of the season. Dave Van Horn's a really good coach. They got all the pieces to me to really make a serious run at this thing, when it's all said and done.
Well, Tennessee had a pretty good weekend too, and you talk about doing outstanding things in just several innings. They put up 20 against A&M on Sunday, and they had 15 of those, I think, in the final 3 innings of that game. Another impressive weekend for the Vols there. Just keep finding a way to score some runs here.
Yeah, this is another team that I think is going to make a lot of noise in the postseason, and I like this team too. I like their lineup. Their pitching staff is good. They've got a real deep bullpen with Hundley and Connell and Redmond Walsh. I mean, this is a really good team. 32-9. They got a lot of power. I mean, the 2 things I took out of this series, this Evan Russell kid is having a year of years.
Yeah.
I mean, he came into the season with 11 career home runs. He has 12. His season high for home runs was 9 in 2019, so he's already eclipsed that. 10 of his 12 home runs this year are in SEC games. So he's not feasting off and this is no disrespect, the Belmonts and Austin Peay's and people like that in the non-conference. He's banging these things against LSU and Tennessee and Texas A&M, and he's hitting his home runs in these series. I mean, he had a 2 home run game the other day. I mean, he almost had he's had a 3 homer game against LSU, a 3 homer game against Vanderbilt, and a 2 homer game against Texas A&M. And so this is a good lineup. Spence at the top, a lot of power. Rucker, Russell, Lipsius, Gilbert, Max Ferguson starting to play better now and hit the ball. Pavoloni's starting to hit. Ferguson and Pavoloni were not giving them much on offense when they were really, really good. Now these 2 guys have started to hit. I think both homered. I know Pavoloni homered twice in the series. I think Ferguson did as well. So this is a good club, really playing well. Blew the game. They actually trailed in the finales 5-4, I think it was, or 6-5, and then put 15 on the board in the last 3 innings and got 20 in the series finale on Sunday, which, by the way, outscored their football team against the Aggies this year. They lost in Knoxville 34-14 on the December the 19th, the day of the championship games or whatever. But the Vol baseball team rolls into Aggie land this weekend and hangs 20 in the last game, and outscored their football team by 6, what they did against the Aggies this year too. So I like looking at stuff like that. I think that's kind of fun. Not making fun of their football team, but you just don't see baseball teams outscore football teams against a certain opponent in a season. But they certainly did that this weekend.
Well, I was going to say, that's one of the things we mentioned on Monday was how, that Tennessee had their spring game, and we were like, well, the Josh Heupel offense, like, at least we know it's going to be really up tempo. They're going to try to put up points. So maybe they'll do better at that this upcoming season in terms of of comparing some of the baseball scores to the football scoring. So we will see how that unfolds for them. One of the other, I mean, Florida and Auburn, I think that was one. We didn't talk a whole lot about that series yesterday, but I mean, I think, Florida wins the series, no surprise there, but I still think one of the things we talked about was just, I mean, this is still that Florida team that you just do not feel like that they have been able to reach that level we thought they were going to be at. And, I guess you look at that game even on, I guess it was the Sunday game, or the first one of the Sunday, played doubleheader on Sunday, but Auburn scored 10 runs in that one. They scored, just the pitching, the inconsistency. I think you just saw that a little bit on display again at times for Florida in this series.
Yeah, Florida got out with a series win, but it was, as we mentioned last week, it was the worst road SEC team against the worst home SEC team, and Florida found a way to win the series. Had a close game, Friday in the opener and pulled it out in the ninth inning, and then won and hung on late in game 3. But I think for Florida, if you're sitting there looking at game 2, you're kind of going, it's not the fact that we gave up 10 runs and we lost 10-8. It's how we gave up 10 runs. I mean, Auburn scored 5 runs on Tommy Mace and 5 runs in 1 inning on Jack Leftwich.
Yeah.
And in 5 innings, Auburn hung 10 spot on Tommy Mace and Jack Leftwich. Supposed to be their number 1 and number 2 pitchers of the season coming in. And so that cannot bode well for Sully and for Florida. But, they found a way to win. They got the series win coming off the sweep over Missouri last weekend. So, they won. They do still have some tough games left, but just, Fabian hit a couple of home runs in the series. The preseason All-American center fielder, kind of struggled a little bit this year, but, maybe he's coming around. But a huge challenge this weekend. We'll find out, the last 3 weeks or the last 4 weeks, Florida's got Vanderbilt at home. Then they have at Kentucky, and then they host Georgia, and then they close at Arkansas. So not a favorable last 12 games, from the Vanderbilt-Arkansas standpoint, but certainly favorable, playing at Kentucky. Which Kentucky team are we going to see, and then which Georgia team we're going to see. They're kind of up and down too, but, now have started playing well, I think, with a couple of series wins in a row now, kind of get them going. But, this next series with Vanderbilt is going to tell a lot about Florida. I don't know that they can beat Vanderbilt at home. I don't know that they have enough offense to do it. I don't know if they have enough pitching to do it. Leftwich had been lights out. I mean, he had retired 24 of his last 25 hitters, had wins over Florida State and Missouri, just pitched lights out, and then just couldn't get Auburn out. Christian Scott's been really good out of the bullpen. Hunter Barco has pitched well in his game 3 starts for them. Florida has the best game 3 record of anybody in the league. They're Arkansas, Florida, and South Carolina are all 5-1 in the final game of an SEC series. So Barco has a lot to do with that, as he's pitched really well. So they just got to try to figure it out somewhere. They started Mace. They've started Aleman and had relievers come in, or their starters come in. He's really tried to do a lot of different things, Sully has, and some weekends it's worked and some weekends it hasn't. But the road stuff for them, that was a big road series win, even though it was against, the worst home team in the league. Florida had to win. Florida had to show they could win on the road. Now they got 2 more chances to do that because, one of them in Arkansas, I don't know if that's going to go very well for them either. Last weekend of the season, at Bomb with the SEC championship and maybe a national number 1 seed on the line. I don't know that I'd like Florida's chances in that series at the end of the year. But the Gators have enough offense. Their freshmen are really good. Hickey, Gassett, Halter. They're all, Young's played well. Fabian's heating up a little bit, but they just got to try to figure out that pitching, and that was really a shock this weekend to read that box score and go, holy Toledo. Tommy Mace and Jack Leftwich gave up 10 runs in 5 innings combined. I had to read that like twice because I didn't believe it. But they've got to get that figured out if they're gonna make a run and be a serious contender in this league, even for a regional spot.
Yeah, no, they do for sure. And, the only other series we haven't talked about, Georgia and Missouri. Georgia wins that one, not a surprise there. And I don't know that there was a ton to take away from that other than kind of one of the things we talked about with Georgia. They've hit this point in their schedule where they played Kentucky the weekend before last. They played Missouri this past weekend. Now they'll get Auburn at home in Athens this weekend. So a nice little, I guess, let up for Georgia kind of here in the middle before they finish out the season with a pretty strong three series against. They got to go on the road to Arkansas. They got to go to Florida, and they're back home against Ole Miss.
Well, they swiped one at Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago, so that was a series we thought they'd be 1-2 or 0-3. They got that series win, and then they beaten Kentucky 2 out of 3. They won at Missouri 2 out of 3. And we talked a few weeks ago after they played Vanderbilt. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. We felt like they could be 6-3, 7-2 the next 2 weeks. And if they take 2 out of 3 from Auburn, they're 6-3. If they sweep Auburn, they're 7-2. And that's kind of where we thought they would be with Arkansas, Florida, and Ole Miss left on the schedule. And also for Georgia as well, you kind of look at, you say, well, their SEC games are tough at the end of the year, but Georgia has 2 non-conference games left, and one of them is tonight, and one is in a couple of weeks, and they're with Georgia Tech. And to Georgia Tech's as important as an SEC game. I mean, they don't want to lose to Tech. They've already beaten Clemson twice, so now they got Tech at home tonight, and they play Tech in Atlanta at the Rusty C on May the 18th, in between the Florida Mississippi series. So if you're a Georgia fan and you're talking about traditions and teams you got to beat, their next 4 games are Tech tonight, 3 at Auburn, then they got 3 at Arkansas, and then their next 4 games are Florida and Georgia Tech. So if your football mentality, they don't like Auburn, they don't like Florida for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and they hate Tech. So there's 8 games right there that for Georgia people, they got to win those games. And they look at Arkansas and Ole Miss, they're like, but they could be 8-6. If they swept Florida and Auburn and Tech, they're happy. They'll be the fans will be happy because that's the teams that they're playing. It's just kind of interesting how that works out the next few weeks with all their teams. But Georgia's interesting with 9-9. I mean, they got a chance to 26-13. They're ranked. They got a chance to make some noise. They got to figure out. They figured out Kumar Rocker, which is really weird. They got to figure out how to win these other opening games, and I know that's been a deal for them. They're 2-4 in SEC openers, and they got to figure out how to get that game. They've been going staff on game 1. Now they've got Cannon, Webb, and staff in game 2, but they got to try to figure out how to get off on the right foot. They've struggled with that this year. They lost the opener to Tennessee. They lost the opener to A&M. They beat South Carolina in the opener. And then they beat Vanderbilt in the opener, and then they lost to Kentucky and lost to Missouri. So they need to get an opener and get them off on the right foot. But, like South Carolina, they'd lost a bunch of opening games too and bounced back and found ways to win series. So Georgia's resilient, 7 walk-offs this year, most in the league. And they seem to have things going pretty good with Cannon and Webb. And if they can pitch and their bullpen continues and the Tate brothers stay hot, Georgia can make a run here at the end and make some noise and be a regional team.
Yeah, you mentioned that game with Georgia Tech. That's the featured midweek game tonight on SEC Network. They host Georgia Tech. Here's the rest of the games: Grambling State's at LSU, Eastern Kentucky at Kentucky, Lipscomb at Tennessee, Citadel is at South Carolina, Missouri goes to Kansas State, and then Texas State is at Texas A&M. Anything else to you that kind of stands out from that group here? As we said, this is sort of just that slate where some of the teams aren't playing these midweek games this week. Meanwhile, you've got I guess about half the league playing some games here.
Yeah, a lot of finals going on now. I think Vanderbilt's in finals. I know Alabama's graduation is this week. They're playing at UAB tonight at Regents Park, the AA home of the Birmingham Barons. Just a lot of in-state, midweek games. Clearly, Georgia and Georgia Tech's the highlighter, tonight. I'd certainly be interested in, watching that game. And Tech's been up and down. They've had a decent run, but they've had some ups and downs. They had some troubles with Florida State, I think, this past weekend in Atlanta. So that'll be a big game tonight for Georgia. They, had 2 wins over Clemson, And I know they'd like to get off on the right track with Tech and give them some momentum going into Auburn this weekend. Kind of reverse. They usually play Auburn and then they play Tech football, but tonight is Tech and then Auburn this weekend. So that'd be the headline game tonight in the league is Tech and Georgia from Foley Field in Athens. Be a fun game.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that Alabama UAB one. That's an interesting, like you said, just in terms of playing that one in Birmingham there, and that's another one you add to the slate there tonight. But Barry, that was like I said, there was an interesting weekend at SEC baseball, and obviously we'll have a lot to talk about heading into this upcoming weekend. More important series here as we start to get closer and closer to the SEC tournament here in about, what is it? I guess less than a month or so from now or somewhere in there. So we're inching closer to that. And I know you guys have got a lot going up over on the site and just a lot happening in SEC baseball right now.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have the best league, number one RPI league, and some of the best teams in the country to be able to follow and write about every day. I mean, I know the power rankings will go up, and our 14 best hitters, our 14 best pitchers each week, and daily recaps of all the games and nuggets on all the games, and trying to keep up with what's going on in the league, and not just scores and how it happened, but maybe try to dig inside a little bit and, a little more than you can get just on the box score, hopefully. And hopefully people enjoy that. And, we'll, talk about it every day here. And, sad to say it's only 4 weeks left in the season. And It's really gone by fast. I mean, some of the smaller schools, NAIAs and Division IIIs have already had their conference tournaments, and there's some conference tournaments for other leagues and divisions starting up in the next couple of, this week and next week. And, the SEC still has, all the D1s still have about 3 or 4 weeks left. But, it's kind of sad that it's, we have 10 of the 14 weeks are behind us and only 4 to go, but then a long postseason as well, because the SEC will have a serious run. I'm sure there'll be multiple teams in Omaha and at least one team trying to play for the national championship. So we, still have 4 or 5 weeks to go after that, but it's gone by really fast. It really has.
Yep, it has. But like you said, you check out everything we've got over at southeastern14.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can pull up any podcast app you use. Just search for Southeastern 14 or the 14. You can find us on there. And for everything else, check out the website, on Twitter as well, at 14 Southeastern. For Barry Allen, I'm Blake Lovell, and thanks for listening to this episode of the 14. And we'll be back again on Wednesday with another episode.